Hey, soccer fans, welcome back to another episode of the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. We are thrilled tonight to be joined by some new friends in the podcasting world, in the American soccer world, the hosts of Sactown FC, a Sacramento soccer podcast. And what's the tagline, guys? The number one soccer specific podcast in Sacramento. Is that it?
That's right. The number one soccer specific podcast in Sacramento, man. Only one, often duplicated, never replicated, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Love to hear it. And thank you guys for taking the time out of your very busy quarantines to join us on the Sons of a Pitch. For those of you listening and viewing on YouTube, I'm Nick, and our other Sons of a Pitch host here is Mike. And we've been podcasting for a couple years, covering the MLS landscape, covering the American soccer landscape. We just started as two guys hanging out at work, wasting way too much time talking about soccer. And when our boss kind of started looking over our shoulders a little more, we had to take it, away from the workplace, did the podcast, keep the conversation going. That was kind of our start. So tell me how you guys got started. I know there's some Twitter history there, but give us the inside scoop and let us know about your show.
Yeah, go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, so it's funny. It actually, the show started this year, but it kind of goes way back to last year. I put out a tweet last year asking, if anyone in the Sacramento Republic community was interested in starting a podcast. And, sadly, I didn't get a response back then. But, this year came along again, and I was like, let me try again, who knows, it might actually work out this time. And within, the same day, probably within, I want to say 12 hours, got a response from John. He was like, hey, let's go for it. It took us probably 2-3 weeks because, I was trying to hold it off, see if, we got more interest to, maybe get another co-host to make it 3 instead of just 2. And unfortunately, that didn't happen, but we did get someone who would be interested in helping us cover matches in the Phoenix area whenever we would play against the Phoenix Rising. And so, we got him kind of on board for only Phoenix games because, he said he would do that for Phoenix. But yeah, so we were a 2-people team for the first 2 episodes, or technically for the first 2 episodes. On the 3rd episode, we actually interviewed Danny Troy, who founded Los Únicos, which used to be a Reno supporters group, and now they're a Sacramento Republic supporters group. But we all really kicked it well in that interview, and we invited him to be a part of it, and he's been a part of it ever since.
That's fantastic, guys. And, again, it just shows you kind of how the soccer community brings together people from all over the place, people who've never met, much like us, much like how we're just going to be able to talk a little soccer now. But what do you guys see from Sacramento? What makes it such a unique soccer community? What are you seeing with the club team right now? And then, kind of what are you seeing for the future of Sacramento as it moves towards the MLS?
Yeah, so soccer in the community has always been huge. Growing up in Sacramento, I left for college at 18, but between the time I started with the ball at the age of 4 to the time I graduated high school and moved to Walnut Creek, California, essentially, I was playing. And we had some talent out this way in terms of the players that were coming out, the factories that were building the players. San Juan Soccer Club had a lot of players coming out that played for ODP, essentially, and we're building. Placer United had a good program, always winning between the two of them. They're always winning, participating in the Surf Cups and Dallas Cups. So it's always been a growth for Sacramento. So when I was in the Bay, I was still paying attention. I was coaching. We had a lot of rivalries with teams up here or here in Sacramento from there. And you could always tell that the community was strong and supported. And it was always a soccer town first, going back to the Sacramento Knights, an indoor soccer team back in the early 90s. And we're always well supported. It was just a matter of finding a team that can continue to drive. And we have the Kings who, that's the Kings. They can get fans. The fans are passionate behind them, right? They're able to save the team from leaving twice. And so soccer was something that can stick, and it has since day one, and it will continue to grow.
So, John, real quick, I don't know if you've had the opportunity yourself to play with anyone who went on to bigger things. Do you have any stories like that or any connections with guys you used to kick the ball around with?
So DJ Countess, Used to play goalkeeper in the MLS. He was a rival of ours when I was in high school, and we had many of duos. He would to school, played. That was when you could play high school soccer and club, and he played for San Juan United, and so it was fun. And he went on to have a great career in the MLS. I think it was short-lived for the most part, but he definitely was somebody that out of Sacramento was a player during my time.
So on the Sacramento conversation, I would actually add on. I'm actually from Modesto, which is about an hour and a half south of Sacramento, and here in the Central Valley, like everyone loves soccer. Like you see soccer complexes like just popping up in different cities, like just as the years go on. And so I think having a team now that can compete in MLS is going to be like huge for the Valley. And we have tons of talent around here that is now going to have more opportunities as well. So, it's good for them, good for the city itself as well. Like to put it into perspective, like the first ever friendly game that Sacramento Republic played, they actually played at a college stadium, and they were able to get about 20K people, and this was their very first game. So, just with that, it just goes to show that people, they really wanted a team. And now that they have a team, it's only going to get even better, especially in MLS. So it's exciting times.
That's awesome that there's a really good foundation of soccer already in Sacramento. Because I know I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, North Central Illinois. Rockford hosted like the largest girls tournament in the state. So there's a ton of youth soccer in Rockford, one of the biggest boys tournament in the area as well. So I always had it around me, but to finally get a professional team at the level of the MLS when the Chicago Fire joined in '98 was huge. And then they ended up just kind of moving out to the suburbs, not being able to fill Soldier Field. They were in Naperville for a bit, so it was kind of like touch and go there for a minute. But Chicago, fortunately, now is a little more solid. Maybe going back to Soldier Field, they're gonna maybe have a little bit more of an empty stadium. But like I always had that soccer foundation myself, and yeah, I've been playing at some level or other since I could walk. But Mike, you got a little bit of a different story with your background. My co-host here, he was kind of a latecomer to all things soccer. So Mike, what was your background, and how do you think that compares to what you're hearing about Sacramento?
Yeah, it was definitely a latecomer to the MLS picture back in 2006, 2007. What I saw really in Sacramento that was, you kind of could tell something was going to happen there because it was so organic. Like you had these crowds of 15, 20 grand in a stadium for a USL side, or even just like friendlies, as you guys said. So that was really interesting to see that, and then that's what kind of got them into the picture in the expansion news, so to say, for the last probably I'd say even 5 years or so. It's been Sacramento, and then all of a sudden they added a few more teams, and we're like, oh man, it doesn't look like Sacramento's going to get a team, and then like things changed really quickly and brought in the team. So that was that's kind of what I noticed there from my standpoint. As far as you guys, I mean, does that kind of like, was a roller coaster for you guys as much as it seemed from the outside?
So I think for us, the main thing was we were always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We'd always be on edge, right? Like, oh, we're going to get a team. It's our time. And then, oh, Cincinnati. Oh, well, shit. Cincinnati, great. No, it's like Cleveland, right? Nobody goes to Cleveland.
Right.
And then
thank
Orlando
you for quoting one of the great Chicago Bulls. Thank you very much.
And then they never gave us a team. Then it was Orlando, and it was just like, come on, we deserve a team. We've worked our backsides off. You gave Beckham a team because he played for you, essentially. He played in your league. You're gonna give him Miami. Nashville got a team. Nashville's good for country music. They filled up a stadium of 95,000 people. I don't even know if it was 95,000. I'm just making that up because the number was huge, and it's gonna make the numbers of attendance look really good for MLS this year. But it's just, yeah, we've always been put on the back burner, and this year, with the way the cost was, $300 million plus to get an expansion franchise, little ridiculous in that that's a large chunk of change. And now here we are with a team. We don't have the ability to grow really as a team this year and solidify ourselves because of what's going on. But I think MLS is going to be something that the region can get around.
Oh, Yeah, no, it took a couple of years, but it was a lot. It was a lot for us, especially as John was saying, we would see, like other teams being announced, and we were like, all right, like what's going on? Like we have the fan base here. Everyone was so passionate about the team too. I mean, a lot of people were just being kind of negative, honestly. After like 2, 3 times where like it seemed like it just kept going down and down. Like we started to see like a decline, I think, in people actually attending games too. So it only just made it worse, So I mean, just getting this news and getting the news of a new billionaire coming in and putting more money towards the team, like it just made everyone's hopes just be that much higher too. So obviously a lot of credit goes to Ron Burkle. He was the leading investor who joined in, because if it weren't for him, I don't know if like we would have been announced, because he came in and you knew that things were gonna get serious. So everyone really in Sacramento, I think it was one of those things where everyone knew that MLS was gonna be there now, because we now had a serious like investor who was gonna go, to make sure we got MLS. So yeah, it was a wait, but I think looking at it from a positive outlook, I mean, it ended up being good, because we were able to build more of that foundation of the team and get more of those fans, that are actually going to follow us to MLS too. So I think that wasn't too bad.
Sure. So is the current USL team kind of making the jump to MLS, or is this going to be a separate, brand new organization, and you're going to maintain a USL presence?
Well, we were talking with Daryl Grove the other night, and he said normally what would happen is you want a coach in place, right? And you want that coach to have the ability to build around his style, like what Bob Bradley did with LAFC. So you want to get a coach in who knows kind of soccer in general, and I don't see anybody better doing it than Bob Bradley. But we have a good coach, Mark Briggs, who is a USL lifer essentially, who has the opportunity to be like a Caleb Porter, I think, and really take this team to the next level. Caleb Porter ended up winning a MLS Cup with Portland, right? And now he's at Columbus. So you take those ideas, you take that concept and the growth. I don't see why the manager, Mark Briggs, couldn't stay on as the gaffer going into MLS. As for players, you're going to have to build a little bit. There's definitely some spots where you can fill, and some players who have the ability. It's just a matter of, do they have the ability to go to that next level, right? So you just never know until you see it.
Absolutely. So what can we expect from Sacramento in their first year of MLS? Are we going to see, say, a Minnesota United where they kind of fall flat, or are we going to see Atlanta United where they're competing for trophies, maybe something middle of the road?
I think when it comes down to it, it really depends on how much money our lead investors are willing to put into the team. I mean, I hope that, we're not Minnesota United, but I think right now there's a lot of like uncertainty too. I mean, no one really knows like if any of our players, that are currently on the squad are even going to be on the first team, or even our own coach. But personally, I hope that they keep our current coach. I hope they don't let him go, because it's really important, to start, building that foundation from the get-go. And then from our players, I hope that, they keep some of the players. I mean, we have a handful of players that, have been with the team for a while, like Cameron Iwasa. He's our leading goal scorer. He actually briefly played with Sporting Kansas City too. And then we have another guy, Rodrigo Lopez. He's like a club legend. He was like the very first announced player. He was with us for like 2 years. He was with us, in championship year. And he actually went over to Mexico, played in the second and first division for a couple of years. So, I hope they keep some of those players that are more experienced and, who I think have the merit to make it to MLS. So,
I mean, it sounds like Sacramento could come in and be a solid team from the start. And I guess playing in California, where you've already got San Jose and the two teams from LA, you got to be respectable. I don't know if there's any talk about doing some sort of like California trophy, like we've got the Cascadia kind of thing going on, or I don't know if there's talk about whatever highway it is on the East Coast that connects New York, Philly, and DC. I don't know. You think there's going to be any sort of California trophy, California tournament with the 4 teams?
You never know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past MLS to try to create something out of it, and we could essentially have that. But going forward, I think you start with the NorCal, right? The NorCal rivalry of San Jose and Sacramento. And then from there, you would bring in NorCal, SoCal kind of conversation. And then you would have your West Coast, who's the best on the coast kind of conversation. So you never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, our biggest rivalry, should be with Earthquakes. We've played against them in the Open Cup a couple of times, and then we've played against them in a couple of friendlies too, and those games they're always intense. So I think it's only going to get more intense, once we join MLS, and that definitely should be our big rivalry.
Excellent. So lots to look forward to from Sacramento, from the club perspective. But now I want to hear about you guys. I want to hear about your show. Like, talk to us a little bit about your show. What is it that you guys are most proud of? Like, what is it you try to accomplish through your podcast, through the social media that you're putting out? And hey, if you got any good stories out there of some podcasting, maybe horror stories, war stories, or whatever, like, let's hear it. Let's let our listeners know a little bit about Sactown.
Yeah, our show, it's kind of interesting how it's kind of evolved over the past month or two. Actually, yeah, probably a month or two. But we started. It was probably the first 5 or 6 episodes that we were talking more in general about Sacramento Republic, and it was mainly just that for the most part. And then COVID hit. They started canceling our league, and then our match was canceled, and so we decided to start interviewing people. And we first started interviewing former players, and really getting their story and how they came to Sacramento, and their soccer career in general as well. And then John actually brought in someone who's locally known, and even beyond locally, actually, I should say. His name is Taro. He owns a pretty big chain of sushi restaurants in the Sacramento area, and it went really well. The interview was really well, and then John thought of the idea of also interviewing community members as well, and getting their perspective on what they think about not just Sacramento Republic too, but of overall everything going on in the community. So that kicked off really well, and then beyond that, we also started to think about also interviewing even players who don't have any ties to Sacramento, but just anyone who wants to tell their story, wants to tell how they got to be where they're at, whether they're a professional player or even someone in the community, like making a restaurant or, all that too. So it just kind of has kept like evolving. And I think I've mentioned this to John before, but, if there's something positive that we can get out of, these like tough times right now, is that, it's helped us, be able to do all these interviews, and these interviews, beyond, just, recording them for the pod. I think personally, they're really interesting too, because we get to learn a lot about our interviewees, and it also helps them also to speak about their story, because we're in a time now where we're isolated, like people want to talk to other people, and I think it helps us have that connection too during this tough time as well.
That's perfect, man. I don't think it could have been any better said, especially that ending part about making those connections.
Yeah, that's actually something that we talked about in our last episode when we recorded Monday night. I was like, dude, why are we not? We should just reach out to like big time players. We're talking like Josie Altidore, big time names, and be like, guys, let's do an interview. What do they got going on right now? So I think we're probably going to be doing some of that in the future as well here.
That's awesome. Yeah, and what's the worst they're going to say? No.
Exactly.
You only get an opportunity if you ask, and it's
Right.
not even like I'm being rude. You're just being direct. Like, hey, why have you not been on my show? I would really like to have you take a minute. And I find that to be the easiest way to engage with somebody. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. Do I know you? Yeah, you do know me now, right? Yeah. Like, this is how it is. You've now met me. My name's John. Nice to meet you. You're going to be on my show next week. What day? Right. So you just have to have that personality. And for us, yeah, it's hard. The team created their own podcast. That's great. I'm glad. But you also have to realize now it takes away the player from our entity that we're trying to create to give them a word, right? Because they're like, oh, well, they're going to be on our podcast. They can't be on yours. So you're kind of fighting. And so one of the things that I said to Luis and Danny was, hey, man, we got to take this a step further. We were supporting the Republic, but now we're our own entity with Sactown FC, right? We're a football club. let's make it that. Let's make it a football club. We're a football cast, and we're going to do our best, and we're going to talk to anybody who wants to chat. And you guys, obviously, we reached out. I believe it was Friday, and I'm just like, hey, why are we not doing this? And you're like, oh, we're doing this. I'm like, okay, cool.
There you go.
And yeah, if you couldn't tell with Mike's reference to Josie Altidore there, huge TFC homer. That's Mike. He's a Toronto guy through and through. I don't know. Are you wearing your Blue Jays hat right now for this interview like you usually do?
No, the Blue Jays hat's upstairs.
And John, I see you got a Celtic shirt on. Is that right?
I've got my Celtic shirt on tonight. Yeah, it was. My kids were playing in the backyard, and they're like, "Dad, come play." I'm like, "All right." And they're like, "Oh, we can't come out here unless you have a kit." So I'm like, "All right, well, I got to get a kit." So I went upstairs, and I had to choose my Manchester United kit or my Celtic kit, and I went with the reigning champions, as you could say.
I think it was a solid choice, especially given the other option was Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a rough one right now. It's a rough one, but that's okay. That's okay. Rangers are going to take second in the league again. King of the losers as always. I don't know if you have any Rangers fans, and I'm going to make enemies tonight right now. But I'm always good for some banter on Twitter, as you guys could attest to that from today. Our co-host got the wrath of me because last night he's like, "Oh, I like Rangers because Steven Gerrard." I'm like, "Oh, you're used to being in second place." I mean, now I'm getting the Liverpool fans, so we're just I'm going. Let's keep going.
Oh man. Well, I'll tell you, the guy sitting next to at work is one of the biggest Liverpool fans that you ever met. And when I started following the Premier League, I ended up following Everton closer than any of the team. So I've become a toffee. And so we just go back and forth all day at work now. It's like no matter what job I have, I'm always talking soccer with somebody. But Mike, don't worry, I'm not going to jump ship and go start another podcast and talk Premier League. Not just yet, at least.
You're a fan of the non-winners.
Go for it,
non-winners.
Have fun, because
I'm
strictly MLS.
Can't pronounce out that far.
Mike,
what's that?
Mike dabbled in Serie A for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I watched a little Inter Milan. That was kind of my team back in early 2000s when I first started, like 2006, 2007. And watched them a little bit when I didn't have 4 kids and a wife. But now that that's happened, I can barely get my MLS in. So
it's hard, man. It's hard.
It is.
I've got three of them running around here, and my wife. So she's taking four kids. Take care of 4 kids at times, right? Because I'm just a giant kid.
Yep.
But crazy. I have to wake up early and watch reruns at times, or sit on the bike in the garage and watch games.
Yep, absolutely. I've done that plenty of late nights where it's actually I actually had to work storm duty for my work the night of the Toronto FC Atlanta United Eastern Conference Final last year. So my shift was actually 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I went in and I just recorded the game. I turned off all devices and came home and watched it at 7 a.m. with the Bloody Mary.
Nice.
It happens.
Nice.
Which was a fun moment for me, because I got to text him the whole time he's working, not watching the game, with just like vague text like, "Oh, you're going to enjoy Josie tonight," or "Hey, there was some great stuff that happened." Just complete vague, non-committal, not anything type of text messages, just to drive Mike crazy that entire night.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Luis?
That's fair.
Luis, how far does your fandom go? Are you USL, MLS, International? Like, tell us who you're watching.
Where's your Cruz Azul jersey?
Here's the story. No, so ever since, I started following the sport, which was, when I was really young, ever since I can remember, I've been a Cruz Azul fan from Mexico. And just like my other co-host, Danny, he actually also goes for Cruz Azul. But just like he says too, like we bleed blue. Like that's our number one team. I mean, that's my original team. So, I mean, Sacramento Republic, is now my, MLS team, or it's going to be my MLS team now. But beyond everything, if they ever actually do play against each other, then I got to go my original team, because that's the team, that I've had to go through a lot. As if you guys have, followed Liga MX or seen like finals and know of all the games we've gone through and all that. But, no matter what, I'm one of those loyal fans, like, team can like go through so many things and make us go through so many things, but it's one of those things that I'm always loyal to them, and no matter what, even if I don't ever see them lift another league trophy, I mean, I'll still be a fan of them. So that would be my first option too. But beyond that, of course, Sacramento's become really one of those teams that I really do like follow a lot too, and it's been great because being that my original team's from Mexico. I mean, I don't see them that much. I've only seen them like twice when they play over here, a couple of friendly matches. But Sacramento's become my homegrown team where I can actually go and watch a game and get more into it on the live side of it too. So it's been pretty interesting. But yeah, that's kind of how it is.
Well, I'll tell you, if you ever do want any sympathy about sticking with the team through tough times, talk to a couple guys from Chicago. Like we're well aware about what it means to stick with the team when they're not winning, whether it be the Fire or whether it be any one of our other franchises.
You had the Blackhawks,
but Cruz Azul actually played in Chicago. What's that, John?
I was gonna say you had the Blackhawks who were winning championships for a while, and that was a while ago.
There was a good decade for a bit there. I'll give you that. But I was watching the Blackhawks from when I was a kid when they were terrible and not on TV, and then all of a sudden they get good, and I can't get tickets to games that I'd go 4 or 5 times a year. So these nice fair weather Blackhawks fans is something that can we can talk about another time. But Cruz Azul played in Chicago. Gosh, I forget what tournament it was last season, and they sold out Toyota Park, Toyota Park, guaranteed rate stadium. I don't know where the Fire used to play.
It was Leagues Cup. First round of Leagues Cup.
The Leagues Cup there. Yeah, that was a pretty good game too. I mean, the whole tournament was good, and I'm like it was a good tournament too. I mean, there was a lot of good games too. I mean, the games were pretty close. If I remember correctly, all the matches, they ended up with like either someone won by 1 goal or 2 goals, but they were all really like close. And then there's a couple of penalty shootouts too. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they keep doing those tournaments, and we see more of this because it's always good. But when we were talking to Daryl the other night, one of the things that we were talking about is that I think MLS teams in particular, they need to take that tournament more like seriously, because I know we played against the Galaxy in the semifinals, and the Galaxy had like a Galaxy 2 team. Like it was almost like they had their USL squad, and as much as it was good for us, we beat them, although it was just barely. I wish it would have been more. But you kind of want to see more like competitive games. If you want to beat someone, you want to play against the best. And so I think that's the only thing with the tournament is that, I hope they take it more seriously.
Sure. I know we usually say more soccer is better for us as fans, but I don't know if it's better for the league, for the quality of play. I don't know. Where do you guys fall on all of this? On top of Champions League, US Open Cup, Leagues Cup, all these new things that are coming up with Liga MX. Like, how do you guys feel about expanded games and tournaments?
I mean, the more the better, right? Especially for the international level. If you look at Europe, right, they all have their own leagues, their own cups. England has 2 extra cups, so the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, along with Europa or Champions League. And if you are really good, you get the Club World Cup. So there's all of these there's all these tournaments that you can be a part of. The only thing I would say about it is if you're going to do the tournaments, you have to make sure that you have the team or the squad that you can afford to put your best players out there to, make a name or extend your brand a little bit more, especially when Luis is talking about the Galaxy put in basically a Galaxy 2 team out. Well, that's fine. They do that for the Carabao Cup, but you need to figure out which one's going to be more important to you. Is the Open Cup your FA Cup? Obviously, the Champions League is your Champions League, and then does your League Cup become your Open? Those are all conversations that I think they have to have internally, and pick which one you want to hit the most.
Yeah, see, the only thing that I'm seeing here is in the MLS standpoint, the more soccer is better because as fans we want to see more soccer all the time. But with MLS, it's 2 words: salary cap. Because of that, these tournaments like Leagues Cup, CONCACAF Champions League, all these other things that they're adding on aren't going to be successful until we can expand to have, more depth. Because if you're in MLS, if you have 9 out of your 11 are really, really strong signings, you're doing great.
Yep.
And then number, 10 through 15 are really solid players as well. You're going to win the whole damn league. So that's kind of, until the salary cap gets fixed, I think we're going to see them struggle in that competition. Now, for Luis, as a Cruz Azul fan, I got a job for you. Go back and find on our YouTube channel. We did a live commentary of the Cruz Azul Club America game right before the coronavirus break. Now, I've watched one Cruz Azul game in my life, and that was that game, and I tried to do a commentary on it because of this damn coronavirus and everything else was canceled. So you got to let me know how it was.
Oh, I'm in. Okay, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch that before we record tonight.
I'll check that out and let you guys know. That was a good game. Sadly, there was no people to see that. But it was good. I mean, it felt like a final almost, in a sense, because they knew, like, before that game started, the league had already announced that that was going to be the last game until forever, it seems. But it was a good game. I mean, we score, and then our goalkeeper blocks that penalty at the end. It was a good way to end it. But
awesome.
So I'll check it out and let you guys know.
Let me ask you guys this question. So I'm just now getting back into MLS. I left MLS when I was down the Bay and the Earthquakes left for Houston. And I've been listening to other podcasts who follow MLS, and the best, I wouldn't say it's the best, but a commentary I heard, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not. Somebody was comparing the ownership of the MLS to Roden and Fields, where you have all of these owners from the original group in 1996 who are able to say, all right, you want to join us? Here, pay us this, and we'll share money with you, but we're not going to share everything. Right. And that kind of comes with the idea of the salary cap. Certain teams get a budget, or everybody gets the same budget. But for some reason, those teams the Galaxy keep ending up with really good players that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars. And I don't see that really anywhere else right now other than Vela and Pavon and Barca. But I could be wrong.
Sure. So I'm going to let the accountant of our duo, I'm going to let him talk to a little bit more of the finances aspects of it all. But I will say I think it's just kind of a preference. How the ownership of these franchises want to spend their money on what kind of players. Like, you look at Atlanta United, they want to spend money to make money. They're going to buy the big players. That way they can sell them as even bigger players. Or you look at teams kind of like New England or Houston, who are very happy just kind of building a solid core and trying to compete that way. But
wait, New England has an MLS team?
Give us your take. What's that?
New England has an MLS team?
Believe it or not, one of the originals, yes.
I thought it was a youth academy. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man, a lot of sour grapes over on John's side there. A lot of hate flowing from you.
Hey, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, and so, it's a matter of, I see what happens with Boston sports, and they just don't hold their own.
No, not at all.
That's totally fair. Totally fair. But Mike, give us your take, man. I know you have a lot of feelings about this one.
Yeah. So as far as the Galaxy go, they are an outlier because strangely enough, rules have been changed multiple times to accommodate the Galaxy. Now, twice officially, and there's definitely been some other instances as well that I'm sure have happened that we don't know all about because they don't disclose anything through all these contracts and TAM and GAM and all that. But the Beckham rule, which I agree with that rule 100%, and the only reason why MLS is where it is today is because of that rule. And then when the whole GAM and TAM thing came to be, that was an LA Galaxy deal as well. It is a little odd how you can get a Zlatan Ibrahimovic to come over for half a season and magically he's on a TAM deal. And then you get a Christian Pavone, who's one of the up and coming superstars in world football, and he comes in on a TAM deal. Is very surprising. And then magically the next year they're DPs, and then they move somebody around, they give them more time. There's something going on there. As far as the other teams, it kind of pisses me off because some of the other squads don't spend the money, and I think that's what is holding MLS back as a league. I know we've discussed it a lot, Nick, as far as, the salary cap has got to go. We got to change it. I agree with the premise of it to try and keep some parity, because in American sports, we love parity. But it's really holding back teams from competing on that next level, like in the Champions League. If you had TFC, who came within penalty kicks, and that was probably one of the best teams, if not the best team in MLS history. And you've got a team like Real Salt Lake back in the day that made a run to the final. But these teams, they don't have what it takes to compete with the Mexican sides. When you've got a squad that has, somebody that's starting for the squad making $150,000 a year. So that's got to change. But yeah, the Galaxy have definitely bent things in their favor multiple times with the league.
Sure. And to add my last little minute of it, it's the league and the ownership of these franchises have to look at it as a soccer decision rather than a business decision. I think they're really looking at it as, hey, this is a great investment to be part of MLS. Like, this growing company, the stock is on the rise. Yeah, all that's true, but eventually you got to win some soccer games. Like, the point of it is to win, and I think sports is unique in that instance. You're talking about your Boston fandom, right? Like, winning cures everything. It cures your financial woes. It cures your fan heartache. It cures everything. So at some point, the owners of these franchises have to just realize, look, let's just do everything we can to make the best 11 starters and win games, win tournaments, and everything else will take care of itself. That's kind of our take. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts, and I don't know if Sacramento is going to be along those lines where they're thinking, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to make a splash, we're going to spend some money right away, or maybe follow suit to, say, some of the teams like a San Jose or a Montreal, who are like, look, we're going to get by, and that's all that we need to do because we're part of this rising stock of MLS.
I hate to say it, but I feel like it might actually be the latter. That might be our situation too. Looking at the investor group that we have right now too. I mean, we don't have that strong of a group. I think like other teams have had to. Definitely like an Atlanta has had to. And like other teams that have been able to do that the first season too. So I think with us, we might. I'm pretty sure we'll get like a big signing the first season, but it might just be like one, and then they're just gonna like just do that for a couple of years and then see how things go too, and hopefully it turns out for us. But yeah, as much as I wish that we would have a first season like an Atlanta or like a Miami, I don't really see that happening.
Sure.
What about you, Jon?
Any thoughts?
I think for me, the big thing is just a matter of you have to make one at least splashy signing, but it has to fit around the coach. Again, if the coach isn't able to hold or to work with a player who comes in with a little bit of a resume, or it's a little more difficult to handle because of their ability to play and what they're used to. I mean, you go back to Red Bulls, right? Thierry Henry was an awesome player, but I heard that he was one of the biggest drama queens at practice. He would kick balls and he'd boot him as far as he could because that was his nature. And it makes sense because if you look at who didn't sign him in Europe, I mean, Arsenal obviously didn't want him. They were willing to sell him off to Barca. And then Barca, it was like, all right, well, what's next? So I think you have to have a coach in place who can control players, but also is willing to work and brings a player in that fits what they're trying to do.
So all we need is the perfect coach and the perfect player, and we're set.
I mean, Carlos Vela and Bob Bradley have done the job. Right? That's
that's very true. That's a good comparison there. Absolutely.
I mean,
I guess the last thing sorry, go ahead.
Any day of the week where you have a coach like Bob Bradley who's done it internationally and for a national team, and then you bring in a world-class player like Vela, they've married quickly and they've done some awesome things together as a cohesive unit. And then they have players who are at that level. Rossi comes to mind, and they make things happen.
well, Rossi might not be around LA much longer. There's a lot of international interest in him from what I've been reading. So LA might cash him out and go on and move on to the next best thing.
They could have done that with Vela in Barcelona, but they didn't. So think about that.
True. But you're selling a lot more Carlos Vela jerseys than you are Diego Rossi jerseys.
That's true as well.
Just a thought.
So I got a question for you guys real quick here. So being that you guys are Chicago Fire fans, what did you guys think of your new logo and also of your team, going from being a soccer club to a football club?
All right, so first of all, I am not a Chicago Fire fan. I'm actually a diehard TFC fan. I just live in Chicago, so I'm stuck here. Nick, he's a Chicago guy.
He's the Chicago.
Yeah, but man, that logo, what a train wreck. It looks like crap. It's just everything from the ties to like the gang colors involved and all that. I mean, it was just a complete nightmare. How this thing didn't get vetted better, I'll never know. But that's my take on it. Nick, go ahead.
Well, one of the jokes that we've said on our show was so the new owner, Joe Mansueto, is he owns this hedge fund company. Was it Morningstar?
Morningstar, yeah.
Is that it? And if you look at the logo for Morningstar, it's the word Morningstar, and the O is just a little offset. So the guy's a billionaire genius, but hasn't had the best track record, I guess, with graphic design and logos. And I don't know if I get the rebrand. Like, you're moving, you want to go to the city, you want to reconnect with the people from the city and do all that. Okay, fine. You want to rebrand, sure. But man, like, there was just no forethought on the way this logo was going to look. And I really thought the old crest was one of the best in the league. The homage to the Chicago Fire, like the actual Chicago Fire and the fire department, the cross. I thought it was cool, but yeah, the logo, definite train wreck, definite black mark on the franchise and Chicago sports. I have actually not talked to one person who likes it. There's a few guys I know who are season ticket holders. We jumped on a Chicago Fire podcast, the Spit and Fire podcast. Mike did a YouTube interview with those guys, and nobody likes it. I think the only person who likes it was the guy from the graphic design company that pitched it.
Oh, of course, because he got paid. He got paid nicely. My 5-year-old drew it originally. I'm still waiting for that for the royalties from that. So whoever your pitch guy is needs to send me a check in the mail, because that's pretty darn ugly. It didn't even make it to my fridge, and my wife puts everything from the 5-year-old on the fridge.
I'll forward that on. I'll forward your concerns on immediately.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, so the last thing I want to talk about here.
Kid. He wants a gumball, man.
The last thing I want to ask you guys, and I noticed that we've all kind of been sipping a little something different throughout the show. And Luis, I know you don't have a picture up because you're hiding your glorious mustache and waiting for a big reveal on that at some later point.
Yeah.
The well-groomed. It'll be a big reveal on the Sactown podcast, not on our show. But I'm sipping on a little scotch here. What are you guys drinking? Mike, John, Luis, what's your podcast special?
So I'm not actually drinking my podcast special. I ran out of it, and because of COVID, I have not gotten back to them to have me some beers delivered. So I go with it's called New Glory beer out of Sacramento here, and they do a beer that is it's gummy worm. It's a hazy pale ale that is just perfect for consumption. The can is pretty cool, and it's tasty. But I don't have that, and I'm not going to represent the people that I'm drinking tonight because I don't know where it came from.
All right, fair enough. We'll have to get you a sponsorship with that brewery. Sounds like you got it down pat.
So they're the official unofficial sponsor of the Sactown FC podcast. And I tell them this all the time, and they're like, "We'll have you over to drink and podcast." I'm like, "That's all I ask for."
Really, that's our goal. We just want to sit in a bar, have some free beers, and talk soccer.
Done. Sign me up.
Luis, how about you?
Right now I'm sipping on some good old H2O. Some pretty strong stuff there.
Nice. From the Chicago area, we refer to that as a Lake Michigan on the rocks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And Mike, I noticed you're drinking out of the official Sons of a Pitch mug there.
Yep, just the standard Johnny Walker Black Label.
On a straw?
Well, with Coke.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going straight to the straw. I'm like, well, he's just straight to the point tonight.
Yeah, I'm. There's some nasty storms in the area, and I'm actually on storm duty right now, so I gotta mix tonight.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, we just.
Well, guys, I mean that we've hit like 45 minutes here on the show, and I want to thank you guys for all your time tonight. I know you're all busy with families and your own shows and things, but from the Sons of a Pitch, from Nick and Mike, thank you guys. Thank you, John, Luis. Thank you to Sactown. Tell everyone where they can find your content, how they can listen to you.
Man, so we have our own website, sactownfc.com. You can find all of our podcasts there. We're also part of the Beautiful Game Network, so you can track us down on that network. But mostly, if you hang out on Twitter, we're at Sactown FC. We're good for some commentary here and there. You can talk some smack for those of you who are Rangers fans in the area or who are on a part of the pod. Liverpool fans too. You can come find me there, Sactown FC. I'll be more than happy to get into some banter and hold my own.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you guys again. It's been a pleasure. When the season kicks off again and we get to see more of Sacramento, we'll have to do this one more time at least and catch up a little bit more. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate it. Cheers.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.